You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram and on YouTube. Co-hosting with me as usual is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. We switched up the recording schedule last minute, so unfortunately John couldn't join us, but he's with us in spirit because this is episode 261 and this is the final episode of 2024 season 4 of Cards to the Moon. Any thoughts, Hyung, on our podcast journey together as we wrap up season 4? Hard to believe.
It's hard to believe, but I mean, I enjoyed this whole process. Every week showing up. I was just talking to you off the record where, you know, life is hectic, but you know, when we do record these podcasts, it kind of gets me back, I guess, into, you know, a happy place, I guess. So, yeah. You know, it's always been great. And I got to give kudos to you, Clark. You know, me and John, you know, will feel the same way on this. Cause I was scrolling past like even the past year, and it's incredible. It's literally like a library full of hobby news, hobby updates. And it's like, wow, we actually did this over the past 4 years, showing up every week. So obviously we appreciate all the stuff that you've done, and it helps that you have that. I'm telling you, journalism, it's coming full force for you because it's so organized. It's like I would never be able to even put this into kind of like a tangible way of like breaking down the hobby. But you look back, and at the end of the day, I like it because if I'm new to the hobby, I go back, I could binge watch kind of episodes and kind of get caught up with the news. So I think that's super cool. What we've been able to do is just kind of commentary, play by play on the way the hobby is, which I love. And lastly, it's like the people that tune in. It's sometimes, you know, every week, it doesn't even seem like a show because it's just like we're just shooting the crap, you know, with each other, just kind of saying this is ridiculous or, hey, check this out. This is really cool. So It's just cool to, I guess, have supporters that actually listen in and tune in. So we're super appreciative of that. But yeah, I'm excited for 2025 too. Yeah.
No. Well, thanks for the kudos and thanks to you guys too. It definitely helps having co-hosts and you know, like I certainly could do this by myself because I love the hobby that much, but it isn't as fun and it's not as motivating too at times, you know, when you know that you have friends that you can talk to. It's just more of a like you were saying, it's less of a chore but more something that's fun to do and we do on a weekly basis. So I've enjoyed that, and kind of cliche, but you already mentioned this as well, that you know, we appreciate all our listeners. Like, it's crazy. Every time we see our numbers, it's always going up. Like, we see new followers and subscribers to our podcast on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts every single week. Like, it hasn't gone down, and it's incrementally going up. So we appreciate you guys. I know some of you are Cards to the Moon evangelists telling your friends about it. So we appreciate that too. And hopefully you guys can continue to tell others about it into 2025 because we're not going anywhere. I know in the past year or two, there have been some podcasts that have dropped off, you know, as the hobby has cooled down since the peak of the pandemic, 2021, 22 era. But we're still here because we still love it. And there's a lot of new things. We're so bullish on the hobby in terms of what new developments are taking place in the coming year, and even things that we don't even know yet, or you know, just haven't, you know, whoever's in charge, they haven't announced yet, but we're looking forward to seeing what's going to be new in the hobby. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing this podcast. You know, we said it in previous episodes as well. We've been doing it for this long because there's always something to talk about. There's no shortage of things, you know, to get deeper into. So yeah, it's been fun. And like Hyung said, we're looking forward to 2025, season 5. I'll talk about that a little bit more later in this episode. But yeah, just letting you guys know, we'll definitely have a season 5 next year. All right, let's start this show. Off the top, I know this news is a couple of weeks old by the time this episode airs, but I think we need to weigh in on it because this impacts our dream, Hyung. And our dream was in hopes of acquiring Beckett one day just hit a bit of a hurdle. And that, of course, is because Collectivus Holdings announced recently that it has become the new parent company for Beckett Media and Collectibles. And at the same time, Collectivus Holdings, a company I've never heard of before this, but they've also acquired Dragon Shield, which is a trading card accessories brand that makes things like binders, sleeves, boxes, mostly for TCG cards, I believe. And Collectivus also acquired card distributor Southern Hobby Distribution. All right, so I guess they're this umbrella parent company that owns all these three properties now. I'll mention this quote from a company statement before I ask you for your thoughts, Hyung. But in the quote, it says, "This announcement coincides with new lending agreements, signaling a year of investment and growth in 2025 for all Collectivus brands," end quote. So yeah, any initial thoughts on Beckett's new ownership?
Do we have any individual names that's involved, or we don't know? We don't know, I guess, who Collectivus is.
The CEO of Collectivus, I believe his name is Kevin Isaacson. Not sure about the first name, but yeah, I think I read that somewhere online.
You know what? Like, at the end of the day, I'm just hoping that, the leader there takes the hobby where it's, or looks at the hobby where it's, where can we be of service and value? I think that's the biggest thing when, you're leading a company like Beckett, something that has so much, and we said this on the podcast always. There's so much value in Beckett that it's a good purchase. Like, if I was physically able to do that, I would have loved to purchase Beckett, because there's so much upside to it at the end of the day. And if you have someone that understands the hobby, understands the direction where it's going, and you have a very reputable brand within the community, I think you can't ask for a better, thing in terms of a new venture, right? So I'm hoping that the leadership of Collectivus, looks at it from more of a problem solution standpoint and really kind of attack it in that sense, where it's not, oh, how are you going to make this money? Because I think a lot of, entrepreneurs go that direction. And I know, revenue is important, but at the end of the day, revenue should be a byproduct of, the service and value that you're giving within a community. So I'm hopeful and I give everybody the benefit of the doubt until they make their moves and kind of, I guess, rebrand them based on their actions, right? So I don't know much about them, and I know we've been talking about it. It's a good buy. Well done, Collectivus, because I think there's a lot of opportunity, and who knows, maybe it's a short term for them or long term. I don't know I didn't really do any research behind it, to be honest. It caught me off guard when it happened, but it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to you, I don't think there's been a lot of information on. Sorry. I don't think there's been a lot of information about Collectivus. Like, a lot of people have more questions than answers. So yeah, you're not the only one that is curious about Collectivus.
But I think the reason for that is, like, let's just say we break down kind of like how this is. It's like, let's just say you need to raise like $50 million or whatever, and your plan was to buy Beckett, buy all these other brands. Now they would get an investor group, get someone to kind of take that leadership, create a new holdings company, and then, okay, these guys are going to purchase this, because our long-term plan is XYZ, whatever it is, right? So I would assume that it's a very new company, and that's why I was wondering who the individual was, because then you could get a better understanding of kind of where their head's at. For instance, you could see Fanatics as, if you see and look at Michael Rubin's strategy and who he is, you could get a better idea of where Fanatics is going to go based on the leadership. So for me, it's more, you probably won't get a lot of information on it, because it doesn't seem like it's a existing party or a company that has acquired it. It's more, okay, there's individuals that, see the opportunity. They create a new holdings company. They go purchase whatever company they feel is in their long-term vision. and then they just basically, you know, created Collectivus. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I just saw this headline from sportscollectorsdaily.com. They do a great job in updating hobby news as well, and they wrote that the new Beckett parent company is getting $250 million in financing from King Street Capital Management.
There you go.
Right. So the holdings company, I guess they're in partnership with, you know, different funds that have the funds to really invest in this venture. So 250 million, that sounds like a lot of money. I'm sure you could do a lot with it.
That's a lot of coin.
Yep, and I think they'll need it to really revamp and revitalize the Beckett brand, especially, and we'll talk about this a bit later too, just the distance that PSA is putting between themselves and the other grading companies, right? So yeah, it's going to be playing catch up for sure.
Yeah, based on this, I think they're going to go at it. You know, like I mean, that's
which is good.
Yeah, which is great. That's what you want. This is what we were waiting for at the end of the day. Everybody who's complaining that PSA, as a group, you know, monopolizing and stuff. It's like, this is what you want. You want a different party coming in with a different mindset to challenge kind of the current one. And this is the evolution of the hobby at the end of the day. It's like, how are we going to get to that future version of us as a hobby, right? And these are the play-by-plays that we see pretty much every week in the hobby. Like we've seen more transactions in the last year than I would say the last 20 years prior to COVID, right? So
yeah, no, it's I would agree with you 100%. Other notes, I was watching an interview with Will Stern of Collect.com and Darren Ravel, who a lot of people know within the hobby, and they were mentioning that they found out that executives at Beckett will pretty much stay on as executives at Collectivus. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, depending on your view on how the executives at Beckett have been running the brand for the past few years. Grading will continue at Beckett. I think that's a no-brainer. That's what they got to improve the most, I believe. And then the infusion of money, I guess that question has been answered with that article I just mentioned, with $250 million being invested into the holdings company. So yeah, that's the latest update. Well, speaking of 2025, I'm sure there'll be more updates and more news revealed, and we'll stay on top of it.
Clark, I think we need to get someone from Beckett to come on the pod or something, because I think it would be a good insight to kind of have. And you know what? Beckett has a massive brand, you know, I guess, presence within our community. I don't want Beckett to go down. Like, I grew up on Beckett. Like, Beckett to me was what the hobby was about. So for me, it would be really cool to try to get someone, a representative from Beckett, to kind of pick their brain on what they view the hobby as in the future of the hobby.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the knocks on Beckett, right? They've been so mysterious and so they've just disappeared from public view at long stretches of times, you know, and I think one thing they can improve on is to be more transparent and get out there and start speaking to the hobby and, you know, infusing confidence back into the brand again for collectors, right? So, you know, we're kind of like low-hanging fruit. We love Beckett already. I'm still buying Beckett graded slabs, you know, but for others, there's less and less. Look at the gem rate data month by month. It's just it looks abysmal right now for Beckett.
So is BGS slabs a buy?
I was going to ask you the same question. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
So this is for the next couple of months, look into your BGS slabs. I think there's value there. All right, let's move on to hobby headlines. Okay, so because this is the last show of 2024, I wanted to do kind of a year in review. And there's been a lot of things that's happened in the hobby this year alone, like you mentioned. So to start, let me ask you, what's one or two hobby-related things or news that really sticks out to you for 2024?
Man, like I was mentioning before, week by week, there's so much stuff going on. And that's what, like at the beginning of the show, I was telling you, I was scrolling, you know, in 2024 to kind of see all the titles. I'm like, holy cow, there's just so much going on in the hobby. And when you look at that just gives you context to see that actual stuff is changing. It's not just, you know, we're just saying this, that, the hobby is we're bullish on the hobby, right? Like there's a reason. And when you look back and you see week by week, and I just highlighted some key points just because there's so many, but even stuff like the MJ Melendez, in the beginning of the year, right. All of a sudden a player gets more interested and then that becomes a big thing. We talked about Topps marketing at the beginning of the year, how they're stepping up, and we've seen, the impact that the marketing has because they're now commingling MLB players, superstars, doing, exclusive autograph deals. The Shohei autograph deal with Fanatics is massive. Like Shohei has been the highlight of every year since, 2021, 2022. So obviously Shohei's 50-50 year, the Connor Bedard, Wemby chase, which, like we said, it's all the hype players usually follow. Mm-hmm. We've seen it with Zion and Ja. We've seen it with, every year, the same players crashing. So I guess just seeing week by week, SGC getting acquired by PSA. Like,
big one. Yeah. Like
massive. And then Beckett now. So it's like, I don't think the Beckett thing would have happened had SGC not been acquired by PSA, right? So, there's so much going on, even King of Collectibles with the Netflix series. Like everything contributes to the overall marketing at the end of the day. Because if people are delivering all these big news that come out week by week, highlighting big things like Topps Chrome Update, the debut patch, the rookie class, the hobby is alive at the end of the day. And that's my whole point in saying all this. Everything that we went through in 2024 is a testament to basically what we've been preaching is the hobby is in the right path. Maybe day-to-day prices can really turn people away from the hobby, but let's not let that side, the negatives, kind of be the highlight of the hobby. Of course, we talk about the negatives, the thefts, the shill bidding, the, pump and dumps, the whatever you want to do. There's a lot of negatives, but you could name that in real estate market. You could name that in the crypto market. You could name it in every single market. So when we're looking at this at the end of the day, it is the macro lens. And I choose to, just highlight the positives out of it and focus on what we can control at the end of the day and what we have to look forward to. I wouldn't say there's one specific thing that pops out, but 2024 has been a crazy year. And this is ultimately the reason why I show up every week too, is because I'm actually invested and interested in these kind of things. And I think we do provide a different spin on what we have to offer as Cards to the Moon on the podcast, because all we're doing is, talking about the relevant things that happen on a weekly basis. And it's not like nothing's happening. There's things happening every week and there's nothing short to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's why I like doing Cards to the Moon with Yi Hyung and John, because you guys also provide different perspectives. And even within this question, we always joke that you're more of a macro level guy. So I like even how you answered this question on a macro level.
I'm always more see it anyway.
I'm always more micro level. I like to dig in deeper, So it's
That's
good.
Why we work well.
Compliment. Yes. Yeah. But I mean, you did mention a couple of things too that was also on my list, and that's like the MLB players getting more involved, and the Topps marketing is all part of that. So you touched upon that. And speaking of Topps marketing and just like how they revitalize some of their own brands, one thing on my list was the Topps Now brand. Huge revitalization. We've been on the record on this podcast in previous years saying it looks pretty cheap. I don't think it's for us. And then all this year we're talking about Topps Now because primarily of the chase cards and the added element of like, going after these potential 5-6 figure cards. And, I know some people don't like the gambling side of things, but you can't deny that it's gotten more attention on Topps Now cards in general, and, US Olympics basketball triple auto of LeBron, KD, Steph, that kind of really, ramp things up. I think from that point on, we got your 50-50 Ohtani 1-of-1 card that was just redeemed actually, by a lucky collector. That was kind of cool to see it. And then there's a Messi and Steph Curry night card, which I got some cards of. Didn't get, I'll just got the base, but I was chasing after that dual auto. And then, of course, more recently, the Juan Soto Mets signing. You can try to get his first Mets auto autograph card. So Topps Now, I think, has been one of the things that I think of this past year. And number 2, Fanatics Fest, the inaugural year. We both went to the event, and you could go back to our archives. We talked about it in depth of our thoughts and our experience. And generally speaking, I think I can speak for both of us that we really enjoyed our time at Fanatics Fest, and we're really looking forward to see what 2025 will look like and how they'll try to improve on it from this past year. But I think that was a highlight for me as well, just that kind of experiencing that, and again tying back into just meeting with other collectors and other content creators in person has been kind of a neat experience in itself. And I'll do another episode before this year wraps, shouting out all the people we've had on the show, and just the other content creators we've been able to connect with. That's always kind of been a fun part of doing this podcast. All right, we'll talk more about other hobby headlines we've discussed this past year in our next segment, because there's been so many, and we've mentioned a couple already. But before we do, looking ahead into 2025 now, do you have any hobby-related resolutions? Like anything you want to accomplish within the hobby for this coming year? I could start things off while you think of something. For me, and I kind of mentioned this already to both you and John off the air, I want to own a 1-of-1 card. That's, whether it's a superfractor or even a platinum. I mean, a platinum parallel. I don't care if it's a 1-of-1. I think that would be an amazing feeling that I've yet to experience, because I've never pulled a 1-of-1, and with my luck, I've done a lot of ripping this past few months. I probably never will, so I want to know the feeling of owning a card where there's only one in the world, and I know you know what that feels like, Hyung. But yeah, that's one of my 2025 to-do list.
That's awesome. I think it's great because specifically superfractors. I've had a platinum 1-of-1. It's not as exciting. I've pulled both platinum 1-of-1 and a superfractor, and yeah, superfractor is it. That's what you want, right? But I think it's great to have that goal, because I just feel like superfractor, like there's a niche market for it where there's collectors that specifically collect superfractors. So it's such it's a tough collection game, but at the same time, if it's a slow move long term, and you enjoy the card, because there's superfractors that obviously are the chase, like the Shohei Bowman Crow, we're not talking about those, because obviously those go for premium. But if you start a collection with, popular cards, images that you enjoy as a hobbyist, I think that's an amazing chase. You enjoy the hobby for what it is. But I will say, I went down that route one time, and if you do need to be liquid, it sucks.
Right.
Yeah, because they might not be the most demanded, so people will obviously lowball you for superfractors. But I think that's a super ambitious way to enjoy the hobby, because it's tough. Even building rainbows is tough because you get to the low numbered stuff. But then if you're going superfractor, that's a step above the rainbow.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the irony too, right? We've complained before that there are so many superfractors being printed, so right. The 1-of-1 kind of loses appeal. But at the same time, if you're a collector, and this is kind of more of a collector side of me goal, it's more affordable in a way, right? Because there's so many 1-of-1s and many superfractors, and again, like you said, not the big first Bowman Chrome superfractor of the rookie. That's just, you're going to have to pay an arm and a leg for that. But there's other cards, to your point, the image you like, or the set that you like, and the player that you like, you could probably get that 1-of-1 for relatively affordable prices.
This is a hot take, but I think all 1-of-1s should be superfractors.
Well, what do you mean? It's
like no platinums. So like paper.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You have the superfractor, but I guess because they use the same image, you couldn't do it. So because Topps Series 1, for instance, if you pull a superfractor, then Topps Chrome image probably going to be the same, so there'll be duplicates. So
Right.
I'm assuming that's the reason, but then get rid of it. You should be only one superfractor of that whole set if it's the same image.
If they take your advice, Hyung, then superfractors will start to go back up in price. So I got to take advantage of it now before they implement that. So,
but I would think on the similar lines like you, where the rookie chase is kind of like dying for me. And I said this before. I appreciate cards that are underrated for whatever reason. Like there might be a really cool image that I like of a Shohei Ohtani auto, on-card auto. So it would be like getting into kind of like the secondary market of not the rookie card chase, but cards that are popular release that, people know the popular image. Usually Topps Chrome becomes, that ages really well, right? So I would do the same thing where go after rare, like really desirable images or cards that can age really well and in low numbered, where you're not necessarily paying an arm and leg for a rookie card. It's more, I would love to have a 3rd year, 4th year auto, on-card auto of Shohei, but it's Topps Chrome, flagship or whatever it is. Like just using Shohei as an example, because I guess that's always a goal of ours to, and we failed in 2023 to pick up a Shohei auto. So 2024, we failed. 2025, maybe that's the year that we all pick up a Shohei auto.
Yes, that's a good one. And you're absolutely right. We failed miserably when it comes to that goal.
Just can't justify these costs.
Yeah, it's just going higher and higher. And I actually talk about that with Paul Hickey. But it's just one of those things where for Ohtani, he's just in a different level, even in terms of the hobby. So you got to accept it for what it is. But that's a good one. And I have one more before we go on to our next segment. And it's more from a content creator perspective. And that's what we are, even by producing this podcast together. And that is, and I think I mentioned this also to Iowa Dave when I was on his podcast a year ago. And I was just thinking ahead in 2025, I really want to do this. And that's have a short series done profiling collectors or maybe even special cards in a more narrative format. Okay, so, don't get me wrong. I love this more straightforward talk radio type podcast format because it's so easy to do and it's come so naturally. And that'll stay for 2025. But I want to challenge myself to produce something that's a little more creative, I guess. And I'm just saying it here so you guys will help keep me accountable for doing it next year. And I've already got a few ideas in my head. But at the end of the day, when I've done it for other niches, and I've done it even as a journalist back in the day, just telling stories in a more narrative format, it's just typically more engaging. And I think I want to bring that part to the hobby. So we'll see.
No, I love that, Clark. I think that's an untapped content creation avenue if you could really deliver that. And, we have good resources on that. So it's like, I'm looking forward to, aiding in that aspect of Cards to the Moon, and I think we could do some really cool stuff based on the resources we have. So we're looking to up our game. Remember, this podcast, it's not saying that we're doing minimal work because it's still showing up every week. And Clark, you do a great job with editing, producing. There's so much that goes on in post-production that people don't see. So I'm looking forward to stepping up our game and kind of committing to it even more, double downing on what we talk about and how important content is. I'm looking forward to that as well, to be able to support. And I'm looking forward to the narrative side because I think that's such a cool way to connect the audience with the hobby. And there's a lot of amazing stories that are untold. So if we could find a way where it's presentable, it represents our brand well, and at the end of the day, it provides value for an audience, I'm all for it. So
yeah, no doubt that I'll be leaning on you for some of that support and putting these stories together. So that should be a great thing to look forward to in 2025. And I'm excited for it. All right. Anything else? Any other hobby related goals, or do we touch upon most of it?
I think we touched upon majority of it. I mean, if something comes up, I'll let it rip.
We'll update it even in the new year. We'll update you guys as we go along. All right, let's move on then to our next segment called Rank It. We've done this before, and it's kind of like our blind ranking segments we've been doing a lot recently, but this one is more straightforward where you don't have to blind rank any of these because I'm going to tell you what they are right away, and you just rank them from top to bottom, 1 to 6 in this case, on the level of importance. Okay, so the theme for this segment is hobby headlines. Okay, it's going to be confusing to some people, but stick with me here. These are other things that have happened in the hobby in 2024, and I want you to rank them in terms of importance or hobby impact. And this is just your opinion, of course, right? And I had to go back and check the archives, kind of like what you did. And I almost forgot about some of these, to tell you the truth, because there's been so much going on in 2024. And you mentioned a couple of these already, but I'll still mention them here anyways. But number 1, LeBron James, he got out of his Upper Deck deal and he signed an exclusive contract with Fanatics. And so all his autograph cards are Fanatics exclusive, I believe. So that's 1. 2, Collectivus Holdings acquiring SGC. So the parent company of PSA now owns SGC. You mentioned that earlier this episode. 3, the return of Topps Chrome Basketball, non-licensed, but Topps Chrome Basketball is back. 4, PSA getting into the consignment business and selling directly on eBay. So a lot of listings now, you see the PSA logo, and they've been doing a lot of other things too, but that's one of the older announcements from this past year, but PSA getting into the consignment business. 5, PWCC, remember those guys? They rebranded to Fanatics Collect this year as well. And then 6, Sotheby's first high-end auction in partnership with Fanatics, where you saw Tom Brady there. So yeah, those are the 6, and there are others, of course. We already talked about it in depth in the previous segment, so I didn't include it in this list. But out of those 6, what would you say is, I don't know which way you want to go. You want to go least important to, or not even important, least impact to most impact?
Let's go least impact to the most, because I gotta break this down because I forgot what the choices are. So So Fanatics Collect PWCC and Sotheby's, I want to rank at the bottom too, however you want. It's obviously important, but I think they're more complementary than primary. And then I'm going to go with Topps Chrome Basketball as number 3. I think it's massive that it's unfortunate that it's unlicensed still. So it's like now it's the transition from Panini back to Topps Chrome. So I think that's pretty important. If you're a hobbyist, maybe you don't care because you didn't even know about the whole, 2012 Prism to current, and then how Topps Chrome now has it. There's some massive cards previously with Steph Curry and LeBron James. So Topps Chromes have a rich history in basketball. So that, I think that's massive in the grand scheme of things. And then what do I have left?
I have LeBron signing his Fanatics exclusive autograph deal, right. Collectors Holdings acquiring SGC, and PSA getting into the consignment business. Okay, so I'm going to put PSA getting into the consigning business as 3, and then I'm going to put Topps Chrome Basketball next. So am I messing this? At 4, because we're going backwards. Yeah. And then I think then this is for John. Just because, no love for LeBron. He can't be number 1. Okay. I will say that it's super important though, because obviously it's not the fact that LeBron signed this deal with Fanatics. It's the fact that Fanatics got LeBron James to sign. Sure. Like that's I don't know if that makes sense. It's like Shohei exclusive. Like that's massive. Like you're showing that Fanatics is the player in the game for the next future. So being able to lock down something like that is massive. And it just shows kind of like the scale that we're talking about, the involvement with these superstar athletes. They're getting the best of the best, right? So that's massive. So it's even debatable that that's number 1. But out of respect to John, we're going to keep that number 2. And I'm going to go SGC and PSA. I think
this in the macro lens kind of is really being the catalyst to where grading is going to go, because I think somebody needed to do it. And if we look back a year after this, we're going to see that Beckett's catalyst and their evolution came from this as well, which is going to put us, who knows in terms of the hobby where it's going to lead us, right? So in terms of the impact, I'm saying PSA SGC is massive on the grand scheme of things when it's all said and done. We don't know where it's going to take it, but we've already seen it within a year. Beckett is acquired. I don't think Beckett is acquired had SGC not been acquired. So it's kind of like pushing the snowball down the hill. It's starting to pick up steam, and we won't know the impact it has until 2026, 2027, when more things are initiated from that. So that would be the order. The last three, I would say, is really, you could interchange them. Who knows where that, but I think they're more complementary, where it's not going to move the hobby in any specific way, but it makes it better. Whereas the first two or three, it's like, okay, now it's actually moving the needle in some sort.
Yeah, I like that. No, I didn't even consider your point of view about the acquisition of SGC and the implications of that, especially with what's going on with Beckett. So that's a strong argument for number one, that's for sure. Because I didn't think about that, that's definitely not my number one. But I could see how that can be. So your list, just to recap, you're putting the Collectors Holding acquiring SGC as number one, LeBron signing. And I like how you also added the Shohei exclusive signing. So we'll bunch that together, like athlete exclusive signatures or athlete exclusive contracts, signing contracts with Fanatics being the kicker as number two. Then PSA getting into consignment business is number three.
I would say Topps Chrome Basketball number three.
Oh, sorry, Topps Chrome?
Yeah. I moved it. I switched it up. Yeah.
Okay, and then PSA getting to consignment number four, and then the last two are interchangeable. The rebranding. I
would say the last three is interchangeable. I don't really care about the last three.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So PSA getting to consignment, the rebranding of PWCC to Fanatics Collect, and Sotheby's high-end auction with Fanatics. Okay.
Complementary moves. Yes.
Oh, interesting. All right. You know what? I'm going to argue against the PSA getting into consignment business as complementary moves. I think that's potentially has the most impact on general collectors, right? Because, PSA is just growing like crazy. If you're going to grade with anyone, you're probably only going to grade with PSA if you had to choose one. And now they're offering a way to sell your cards, make your cards that much more liquid by being the consignor, cutting out that middleman in a way. And I think that's just going to be even more impactful in 2025. Because if I ripped a card, or if I ripped a box and I got a hit, now I'm going to grade it to PSA. That's a no-brainer if it's a nice hit. Oh, I don't really want to keep it, but now I can sell it right away by just click of a button. That's what it is now. Click of a button. They consign it. They take care of the shipping and everything, and then I get paid out.
No, the idea is great. Will the execution catch? Will people catch onto that? I think the idea is great, but it's more, will it
sure
catch?
It's a question, but I don't have any big reasons to doubt PSA at this point. So that was all know.
What number was that for you?
That's number one for me.
Okay.
Number one, yeah. Number two is, I agree with you, LeBron James signing with Fanatics, and for the exact reason you mentioned. It's because Fanatics is acquiring all these superstar athletes and what they could do with, and we've already seen it. I'm still waiting for my Shohei 50/50 box. And, that's because they thought of this product, almost out of thin air, and people it sold out quickly. So, and then they could do these things because they have this exclusive contract with superstars like Shohei and LeBron, and I'm sure you're going to see even more of it. It might even be too much for some people, but I'm sure you're going to see Fanatics take advantage of their exclusive contracts and just pump out products, right? So that's number two for me. Number three is what I have. I think Topps Chrome Basketball, even though it's non-licensed, I think that's a big thing. And even talking with Cajun Cardboard on his YouTube show, he thinks that Topps Chrome, and he hates Topps Chrome unlicensed basketball. But I think it's just priming the basketball card audience for when the licensed product comes out.
For sure.
So it's just like, we want something now. Okay, we'll give it to them. and then, when it comes out, they're going to want it even more. So in that sense, I think Brian was mentioning, Cajun Cardboard was saying that Wembanyama is going to have almost like 2 distinct rookie years. One unlicensed and one licensed when it comes to Topps Chrome. So yeah. So that's the 3 for me. And then the remaining ones. So SGC being acquired, I think that was a big deal, but I don't know in terms of the impact. I feel like people that grade with SGC is just going to continue to grade with SGC and PSA. Like, it's no immediate impact for me anyways, personally. But I guess they have better funds to operate more efficiently, but that's all in the back end of things. So until I see what that actually means for the consumer, it's number 4. And I agree with you for the last 2. The rebranding to Fanatics Collect, not a big deal. I think that's 6 actually. And the first high-end auction will be number 5, because that's just opening up to a new potential audience, for the hobby. So I think that's my list. So number 1, to recap, is PSA getting to consignment business. 2, LeBron James, Shohei Ohtani, just the exclusive athlete deals with Fanatics. 3, Topps Chrome basketball. 4, SGC. 5, first high-end auction with Sotheby's. And 6 is PWCC rebranding to Fanatics Collect.
Sounds good. Yeah.
And that's a good way just to recap. There's so many more things I could have included on this list, but this episode would have been just dragged on if I did. So anyway, yeah, lots of things. And I'm sure in 2025, there'll be even more things to talk about. All right, let's end off this last show of 2024 with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this is when we talk about 2 cards and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. So do you want to do the honors and start things off for us?
Let's do it. There's a lot of talk in the Japanese market right now. Roki Sasaki. I've been talking about him since 2019, this guy. I got to, fortunately see him pitch when I was coaching the 18 under national team. He was in Korea in the World Championships. I got to see him pitch against Korea. Unbelievable. It was unbelievable because the amount of scouts and media press that was there we're talking a whole stadium packed, and they weren't fans. It was all media and scouts. And, us, because we're scouted, we have to go to the games to scout the players. And here you have Roki Sasaki just pumping, triple digits. So he's going to be a very, very exciting, pickup, because over the last couple of years with the hype of Shohei, even Yamamoto, I think Yamamoto's hype obviously died because of his injury. But at the end of the day, he put out very respectable numbers. And I want to compare the 2 because it's interesting. You have Shohei, we're not going to do Shohei, we're going to do Roki Sasaki and Yamamoto, because you know what Shohei's getting, but Shohei's almost on elite status because he does it in both, the best at both hitting and pitching.
Yeah.
We had massive hype around Yamamoto. His card price is obviously tanked, but still pretty high, I would say, because of his talent. Versus Roki Sasaki, who doesn't really have any, I would say, Major League Baseball, obviously, licensed cards. It's more whatever's out there. So World Baseball Classic, and specifically, I guess not including his NPB cards. I'm going with the 2021 NPB Topps Chrome, where it's, I guess, licensed with Fanatics and Topps. A red refractor PSA 7 sold for $1,556. And that was a massive sale. I think the original buyer purchased that card raw for $500 earlier on the year. So he tripled his money. And the last one, PSA 7, just sold December 1st for $1,556. Okay. So there's a little bump on Roki Sasaki's market, but I think the Topps Chrome 2021 is a very desirable card. I think you could draw parallels to Shohei, but it is on an inflated list. We're going to go the other way where prices are trajecting down. Okay? And I'm going to go with the 2024 Topps Chrome Sapphire Yamamoto, his gold auto out of 50, a PSA 10. Okay? So gold auto PSA 10 sold for $1,425 December 16th. So it's basically, we'll say $1,500. You have $1,500 as your Christmas bonus to buy a card of a Japanese player. Are you going to go Yamamoto or are you going to go Roki Sasaki? And like I said, the Roki is not an auto, but it is a red out of 5 versus the auto version of the Topps Chrome Sapphire Yamamoto Gold. And just to throw it out there, Yamamoto has a lot of cards too. There's a lot of different rookie autos you could purchase. Not a Bowman Chrome, so same situation as Shohei, which he has a Bowman Chrome auto as well. So would you go with the hype or would you go with kind of like the died down version of Roki Sasaki? Or will Roki Sasaki be better than Yamamoto?
Dang, so many things to consider. And
$1,500. You got $1,500 for Christmas.
It's a treat myself present. Okay. I thought even before you mentioned which Yamamoto card it would be, I would just go for Roki because mainly for the upside potential. You know, there's always that upside potential and the hype that it comes with. It is a red, so it's really red is number 5 still.
Number 5, yeah. This one is number 5.
Right. Okay. Topps Chrome, yeah. Okay, so and it's Topps Chrome. So and I don't care about the PSA 7 when it's that rare, so that's not even a factor for me. But with the gold, PSA 10 is nice, obviously, and it's Topps, but it's Topps Sapphire. And you already made my main point that Yamamoto has a ton of cards, a ton. And so I don't know if where this ranks within the most desired card for Yamamoto. I think it's probably middle of the pack, if anything, even though it's a gold. So I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm an auto guy and I've been trying to like refocus my collection into just targeting autographs. But if you're giving me these two, I think the non-auto, because it's red as well, and the upside play of Roki, I'm going with Roki. If you said it was orange, I might think twice.
Whoa, hold up. Okay. Because there was a sale about 2 weeks before, the orange Sapphire, for $100 more. So it's almost the same. But that just shows you orange Sapphire versus gold Sapphire is almost kind of similar. I think gold is a highly demanded parallel. So, and just to give you context, you're right. I would say Yamamoto's true rookie auto would be in just Topps Chrome, so not Topps Chrome Sapphire. So it is, I would say, the secondary. But Topps Chrome Sapphire orange out of 25 for $1,500 or the red.
You know, because it's the same price, it kind of
you just
said, give me Roki.
Nah. Well, if I told you it was $1,800, you might have considered.
No, it's got to be $2,500 at least.
Oh man! So still with the red Sasaki?
Yes, I'm sticking with red.
Interesting.
Roki.
So I go back and forth on this because I think Roki is the right card. As crazy as that sounds, like non-auto, because when Roki comes, all we're going to hear about is Roki next year. I'm telling you. Topps Chrome update, I'm in. Like that debut patch for Roki Sasaki is massive. You got to remember, this guy's still 23 years old, so he's younger than Yamamoto. He throws 100 up to 102 miles an hour. Nasty splitty, nasty slider. This guy is the real deal. I would say out of all Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Roki, as crazy as this is, I think the ceiling for Sasaki is the highest out of all of them in terms of pitching. Now, you got to remember, Ohtani's a lot older, so you got to give Sasaki some time. And Ohtani, when he was, I think, Sasaki's age, this is where he started really figuring out pitching. Because I would say Ohtani was always an unbelievable hitter, unbelievable pitcher. So it's like you're taking someone who's just focusing on pitching, right? So I think the ceiling for Sasaki in terms of pitching is higher than Yamamoto's. Obviously, it's his to now earn that right. I'm not going to give him that right now, but that's the potential you have on Sasaki. So I expect the Sasaki card market to blow up. So with that said, I still want to go Yamamoto because of the potential, but the hype, you're right. I think the hype is the difference. I think long-term Yamamoto, short-term Sasaki. So that's why I'm going back and forth. And I'm going to go with the Yamamoto Gold Auto because it is a PSA 10. And I think if Yamamoto comes out hot, I think that could bring up the hype. But I could see both going the right way in the right direction. And it all depends on basically how are they going to perform. If they come out hot, and here's the other thing. Maybe this will detract you from Sasaki. He has 45 days to sign, to come up with an agreement. And this was probably a couple weeks ago. So at the end of the day, if he doesn't sign, he's going back to Japan, which could impact his card in a negative way. Sure. He would have to sign for him to continue that trajectory.
Yes.
But still, it's the red. Not budget.
I mean, I can't see how the Dodgers don't sign him. That's why. So
Padres maybe.
Oh, Padres too. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying. There's Yu Darvish connection. There's a Hideo Nomo connection in San Diego. So I would like to see him in a San Diego uniform.
And you know what? The Jays are in this as well. You see that on the news clips. Stop, please. Stop using our hometown Blue Jays as leverage, okay?
That's not a good fit. I'm telling you. Oh, we missed out on Ohtani. That was the only. Soto doesn't make sense at that price. And Sasaki's not going to make sense at that price too for Toronto.
Ever the realist. Okay. All right. No, that's a good one. Okay, so let's end off with my pick one. So this is really between modern versus vintage, okay? And it's in the high-end range. So between $10,000 and $11,000, both of these sold for recently this month. On one side, you got the 2024 Topps Chrome Sapphire. We're talking about Topps Chrome Sapphire a lot. Pad Paracha. I don't know what that parallel is, but it is a one-of-one.
It's a one-of-one pink one, right?
Yes, the bright hot pink. Ellie De La Cruz, his rookie PSA 9. Okay. 10,500 recently. And on the other side, you got the 1952 Topps of Jackie Robinson SGC 4.
Okay, let me just so the Ellie's a non-auto, right?
Ellie's a non-auto, correct.
So it's just the regular, and then sorry, what was the other one?
Jackie Robinson 1952 Topps. I believe that's his first Topps card. SGC 4.
Oh, SGC 4, eh?
Sold for $10,300. So pretty much the same.
The logical person would obviously pick the Jackie, I think. But we're not logical.
We have hobby logic, yes.
It's hobby logic. It's very different than logical. It's hobby logic for me. It's Ellie, man. Because, like I said, if I want a Jackie, I want a better Jackie.
Okay.
That's the problem with vintage is like, it's always like, I want a better grade. So it's like, okay, let's get out of that game because I want a better than SGC4. Let's go in a more rare card that has more potential. That's how hobby logic, right?
Yes. But to
So
your point,
Yeah.
in terms of hobby logic, the modern card argument would be, I want a better card.
But one of one is pretty damn good.
I know, but I mean, like, in terms of, we talked about this before about my personal goal of 1-on-1. There are other 1-of-1s out there.
Well, I know what you're gonna pick because we talked about the 1-on-1 segment. So you're thinking, man, would I drop 10 grand on a LED De La Cruz? It is overpriced, and it's the parallel that we can't pronounce.
Yeah.
Terrible parallel. I'm telling you, that's the downfall. Like, I might change my mind just because the parallel name. Now that I think about it, I think it's terrible. I think they Sapphire. You need to do better than that. Like,
I agree.
It's just terrible.
We can agree on. Like, why would you choose a parallel that no one can say?
The crazy thing is, I remember Vladdy's year, 2019, Topps Chrome Sapphire. They had a superfractor.
Right.
So it was the same image as the Topps Chrome Superfractor, but it was just labeled as Topps Chrome Sapphire Superfractor versus Topps Chrome Superfractor. And then all of a sudden, they made a parallel that no one could pad paracha. Like,
yeah.
Pick something better, man. Pick something better. And because of that, I'm going Jackie. Now that I think about that, screw that. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't like spending 10 grand on this 1-of-1. That's pink.
Yeah,
and I can't pronounce.
You know what? Let's end this last show of the year off in agreement. For that exact reason, we can't pronounce this damn parallel, so we're going with the other card automatically. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, 100%. I'm out.
No, I like that. But yeah, it's, you know, the only reason why I brought this up in a little bit more of in seriousness, but is that there seems to be more focused on vintage nowadays. You know, even with collectors that we know. But we won't get into it for this year as we wrap up. We'll talk about it in 2025 to see what the future of vintage is. I think that'll be an interesting topic to discuss. All right, we did it. 2024 is in the books. We appreciate you guys as always. And, you know, we've always said this, but if you do enjoy listening to our podcast and you haven't rated it, we appreciate if you gave us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, because I believe it really helps with the algorithm these days in terms of pushing out our podcast to others that may or may not know about Cars to the Moon. So yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great. And yeah, we'll see you in 2025. Talk then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.